Thanks so much.
Yes, so we present ourselves here today as a pair of seniors. We moved back to Newfoundland back in 2021, just sort of right in the middle of COVID. And we did find a family doctor at one point, but just last January, he had to leave his practice. So we were stuck without a family doctor. Now, the problem is that many seniors today are all part of the baby boomer generation, not the Z generation, but the baby boomer generation. And they all need follow-up care. We need follow-up. We have medical issues that require some care, some testing, some different things. I've had heart issues, and I've had, in the past, cancer surgery. My wife has a problem with her neck. It's fairly fragile. She has to be careful. That's why when we were in an accident last Thursday, she felt her neck a little bit off, and she called the 811 system, and they recommended her she should visit a ER because we have to get that checked out to make sure her neck is okay. So we said, well, we'll go to Carbonear. That's not too far away, and it's a smaller hospital, so it shouldn't take us too long to get through the Carbonear Emergency Hospital. So we arrived there last Saturday at about 2:30, and we left the next morning after seeing a doctor at 7 a.m.
Shame. 17 hours.
So just to be able to rest assured that we had some x-rays and that Mary-France's neck will be all right, though it'll take a while to settle down with the spasms that she had at the time. So really, I put it in this way. If you wanted to take the ferry boat from Argentia to North Sydney, that's how long it takes, 16 hours.
Shameful.
And so the fact that we lost our family doctor all of a sudden certainly left us in a lurch, having to try to go to some walk-in clinics, and all the walk-in clinics are almost booked before you arrive there. I inquired at a website for one of the walk-in clinics in Churchill Square. I go in to register online. All of April is booked. So, well, you know, if you have some attention needed, you can't wait 6 weeks, you know. It's pretty hard to do that.
Yep.
And so it was. So really, we feel that the main thing is there's lack of workers, lack of nurses, lack of doctors. I think there's enough clinics and hospitals, but in Carbonear they were down to one doctor for that weekend. Perhaps because the other one was sick, or they didn't have a replacement, or, I don't think it's necessarily the doctor's fault that things took so long. It's because we don't have enough staff. We don't have enough. We need to recruit. We need to get more doctors, more healthcare workers, and make it a priority that the seniors can count on. And that's what we have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Pierre. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you so much to Pierre and to Marie-France for sharing their story. 17 hours. 17 hours is what two seniors had to wait for to get care. 17 hours. This is a problem. We, as Canadians, hold our health care really dearly. It's something that we're proud of. We are proud that we take care of each other. But for Pierre and Marie-France, that's not good enough. We got to do better than that. And so at this time when people are looking at the United States threatening us, Donald Trump threatening our country, people are saying, we're going to fight back. We're proud of what we have. We're proud of our country. And we're proud of our values as Canadians. And one of those values that we hold very dear, we hold so dearly, is the idea that we believe in taking care of each other. We believe in taking care of our neighbors. And what represents that value is our universal healthcare system, a public healthcare that's universal, that's there for you when you need it. That represents who we are as Canadians, that we want not just ourselves, but our neighbors to be looked after. We believe in that. And New Democrats fought to bring this in, but it is in crisis. It is wrong that Marie-France and Pierre had to wait 17 hours to get care. And as they mentioned, they don't blame the healthcare workers. They blame the fact there's not enough of them. And they're right. We need more nurses, more healthcare workers, and we need more physicians. And so today, I want to talk to you about the challenges that we're up against. Canadians are taking a hard look at Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, and they're hearing their plans to cut healthcare. And Canadians are saying, you know what, I don't think that's good for this country. I don't think that's good for my family. It's not good for me. And so people are starting to reject the Conservatives. We're seeing that more and more. But then people are looking at Mark Carney, and they're hearing him talk about cuts as well. And they're hearing him talking about cutting services. And they're worried that cutting healthcare right now is the wrong thing to do. So if you're one of those folks that are hearing Mark Carney talking about cuts and you're worried, vote for a New Democrat. We are the only ones that are going to fight back to defend our healthcare system. We're the only ones that have a proven record, not just of bringing healthcare in, but we used our power to expand it with dental care and pharmacare. We can deliver, and we will deliver for Canadians. So while we need to invest in all healthcare workers, particularly nurses and healthcare workers in general and frontline care workers, today I want to talk about our plan to increase the number of physicians. I believe that everyone in our country should be able to have a family doctor. I think that is a fundamental thing we need in our healthcare system. Yeah, we need it. We need it. And so to achieve that, here's our plan. First of all, there are thousands and thousands of trained physicians who have gotten international training, whether they're Canadians that were born here or Canadians that came here. There are thousands of folks that have trained across the world, have met the qualifications, and are here in this country. And the only reason why they can't practice, why they can't actually care for patients, is because they haven't been able to find a spot in residency. The fact that there are so many physicians in our country that simply can't see patients because they couldn't find a residency spot is outrageous. So we have to fix that. So my plan is to open up 1,000 more residency spots across this country so we can actually get those physicians to be qualified in our country. We also need to train more folks here at home. We need to train more folks in Canada. We have to particularly train more physicians in communities that are underserved. And I think about underserved communities, rural communities, remote communities. We need to train people from those communities who will go back and serve their own communities. That's something we've got to do as well. We also need to make sure that we take away some of the burden on physicians. A lot of physicians spend up to a day in administrative work. Instead of seeing a patient, they're doing administrative work, and it totals a day. That's a day of care that we're missing out on. So we want to get rid of that administrative burden for physicians so they can see more patients. That means getting rid of some of the work. One of the things we said is, for example, people shouldn't need to get a doctor's note. If you're sick, we can trust a worker to be sick, and they don't need to clog up the emergency room or clog up the doctor's office by having to get a doctor's note. And then finally, to incentivize provinces to do this, to encourage and incentivize, we're going to offer a 1% increase in healthcare transfer for provinces that sign on to this idea, sign on to this plan of increasing family physicians in that province. Yes. We can work together. We can work together to solve this problem, and that's our plan. You know, Mark Carney wants to give tax cuts to the ultra-rich and cut your health care. New Democrats want to strengthen health care so that everyone has a family doctor when they need it. Donc, je veux remercier d'abord Marie-France et Pierre.
First of all, I want to thank Marie-France and Pierre for telling their stories. And I also want to thank Sherry, the president of CUPE here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and the nurses who are with us today, because we need nurses. There's no doubt about that. We need all healthcare workers. And having heard the story, obviously we're heartbroken when we see that seniors who had to wait 17 hours in an emergency in order to receive the care that they needed. That is completely unacceptable. 17 hours? No. We cannot continue that way. So, as Mary Chortle has said, we need investments in the healthcare system because it's in crisis. And as Pierre said, we are the party that has always defended the healthcare system, and we will continue to do that. So at this time, with Donald Trump's threats against our country, well, Canadians are proud of our values. We will resist Donald Trump because we're proud. We're proud of our country because here we look after each other, and our healthcare system represents that value. And even though it's a source of pride, and that we fought to put this system in place, the fact is that now we're in crisis and we need to resolve it. Now, Canadians have seen the Conservative plan under Pierre Poilievre, his plan to cut services, and Canadians are starting to say, no, that's not right for me, it's not the right thing for my family, and it's not the right thing for our country. So they're starting to reject the Conservatives. But additionally, people are worried about Mark Carney, who's talking about cutting services and cutting taxes for millionaires. And they're concerned about that. So if you are concerned as a Canadian, if you're afraid of cuts under Mark Carney, vote for the NDP. We are here to defend our healthcare system and improve it. And today, I am making an announcement because we need all the healthcare workers we can get, especially nurses. But today I want to talk about the fact that everyone should have access to a family doctor. That is absolutely essential in our system. And in order to achieve that, we have a plan. There are tens of thousands of doctors who have been trained, working here or living here in Canada. They're Canadian, but they cannot care for patients because they haven't been able to find a residency in order to complete their studies. That's the only barrier. So what we want to do is create 1,000 additional residency spots so that those doctors can complete their studies. Also, we need to train more people in this country. And through this training, we will favor people living in certain areas of the country which are underserved. For example, rural communities, northern communities where there's less access. We also have to eliminate the bureaucracy that is so much part of a doctor's working life. Very often they have to spend at least one day to do that paperwork rather than caring for children, and we want to change that. And to incentivize the provinces to work with this plan, we intend to provide an extra 1% through the Canada Health Transfer to increase the number of family doctors in Canada. That is a plan that will work. So at these times, we see Mark Carney proposing to cut services for you and your family and cut taxes for millionaires, but New Democrats are proposing to invest more in our healthcare system to guarantee every Canadian access to a family doctor.
Merci. And with that, I'm ready for any questions you might have.
Merci. Maintenant, on va passer à la période de questions des journalistes. Une question et une relance par journaliste. We'll now take the questions from the press. One question, one follow-up. We'll begin with Rachel Aiello, CTV.
Good morning. There are no cost estimates with this announcement this morning, so how much are you expecting a 1% top-up to these health transfers for all provinces to cost?
Yeah, we've figured out the overall kind of impact of a plan across the boards for all provinces to sign up, and we can give you that figure. But it's something that we have to do. We're in a really dire strait right now. 17-hour wait for Marie-France and for Pierre. It's just wrong. It can't happen. 6.5 million Canadians don't have a family doctor. That's a problem. And we have a pathway to fix that, and we'll give you more details on the costing.
He's looking at probably around 7,500 new doctors you'd have to hire to close this gap. I know you're looking at some international certifications, but it takes 10 years at least to become a doctor in Canada. So as the kids say, you know, like the math's not mathing here. How are you going to make up that difference?
Yeah, so we have actually tens of thousands of physicians. There's some estimates of 15,000 physicians that are in Canada that are trained, that have completed all the qualifications, but the only barrier they have is they can't get residency in Canada. So there are a massive number of folks that are already trained in our country that could help us get a lot of the way there. We absolutely need to train more people in our own country as well. With a combination of those two steps, we also talked about looking at more primary care centers as a way for people to get access to care, better utilization of folks like nurse practitioners who can do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to seeing patients, and better utilization of our other healthcare professionals. So there's a broad approach to how we can tackle this crisis, but we're laying out some of the first steps today.
Merci. Maintenant, prochaine question, Valérie Gamache, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Monsieur Singh.
Hello, Mr.
Votre
Singh.
annonce aujourd'hui, c'est par ricochet les
Today's
travailleurs. Et c'est
announcement
de ce que je veux vous parler parce qu'évidemment, dans cette
is
campagne,
about workers, and obviously in this campaign, workers feel they're being courted left and right. All the parties are trying to attract them to their side. Some are even saying that some political leaders are using this to increase people's fear. So what do you say about wanting to ensure that people feel some fear about the future? Well, I do understand people's concern, people's fear, because there are real threats out there. Donald Trump's threats are creating chaos every single day, and it would be difficult not to be afraid in the light of all of these things. But my message is to give people hope. It's not just about being afraid, it's also about providing solutions. And that is why I'm saying that what exactly is the solution in the middle of a healthcare crisis? Conservative cuts under Pierre Poilievre? No, that doesn't work. It'll just make things worse. And Mark Carney is also talking about cuts to healthcare. That will not fix the problem. And that is why we are offering a clear plan, investments in our healthcare system, hiring more doctors, training more doctors, recognizing trained doctors' international credentials so that we have more doctors in operation, and also facilitating the process for U.S. doctors to come to Canada to practice. And we want to make sure that doctors can practice all across the country. So we have solutions, and we want to give hope to workers. And I think that hope is always stronger than fear.
Sure. Yeah. There are a lot of people that are afraid, and I understand that. There's a lot of reason to be afraid and worried right now. You got threats from Donald Trump attacking our very country and our sovereignty. The chaos that he creates a lot of uncertainty. So I understand people feeling worried, feeling uncertain about the future, and feeling afraid. But we have to go beyond the fear and talk about real solutions and give people hope. I think that's our responsibility. And that's why I think people are turning away from Pierre Poilievre, because he's not really offering any hope. It's just the fear and just the cuts as a solution. And cutting things that people need, it's not going to help Marie-France and Pierre to cut healthcare even further. What does he want, the wait times to be even double that? They're going to wait for 2 days before they see a doctor? I mean, that's not a solution. That's why people are turning away from conservatives, saying, that's not going to help me out. But people are also worried about Mark Carney and his cuts. And that's why we're laying out a plan to give people hope, to give workers hope. We can fix these things. We can fix our healthcare system. We've got thousands and thousands of internationally trained physicians in our country that aren't seeing patients because of a barrier. Let's lift that barrier. And that's what we're talking about today. How we can get those physicians taking care of patients, how we can fix our healthcare. In the face of all this uncertainty, we want to give people hope.
Et ma seconde question est pour votre candidate,
And
Madame
my
Chakor.
second
C'est
question
possible
is
de-
for your
de
candidate.
parler, vous parlez français, je
Oui,
pense.
elle parle bien le français.
Does
Oui,
she
oui.
speak French? Yes, she does speak French.
Ben, je veux vous entendre sur ce que vous entendez sur le terrain.
I'd like you to
justement,
comment on what you're
des
hearing on the
travailleurs,
ground
travailleurs de la santé
from
de-
healthcare
d'autres
workers
milieux ici à
and
Saint-Jean.
workers from other industries.
Alors surtout, merci pour la question et je
Thank you
m'excuse,
for the
mon accent,
question,
c'est pas si bon
and
que le
I'm
chef
sorry
ici.
if my accent is not as good as the
Mais
leaders.
J'ai entendu, j'ai frappé sur les portes maintenant
But,
pour presque 22
I've
mois.
been knocking
Et
on doors for many months now, and what I'm hearing
presque chaque porte,
almost
qu'ils
every
soient
single time
inquiètes de
is
pas
that
avoir un
people are
docteur,
worried about not
avoir
having a
l'accès
doctor,
de système
about
santé.
not being able to
C'est
access the
vraiment
healthcare
en
system.
crise.
So we're really in a
Il veut
crisis.
aussi, parler des coûts de vie,
And they
coûts de vie.
also want to talk about the cost of
Parfaitement, parce que
living,
ça inclut beaucoup.
because that includes a lot of issues.
Il y a une semblance entre leur accès de système santé.
But they're particularly worried about access to the healthcare system and about the need for more money in their pockets and their mental health. So everyone has something to say about the healthcare system. And access to a doctor is really a serious issue. There are many, many people in St. John's East, even in St. John's East. There are a lot of people who don't have access to a doctor. So something like what Jagmeet has proposed will help a great many families here in St. John's East and right across the country.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Prochaine question, Patrick Butler, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Monsieur Singh.
Hello,
Bienvenue à
Mr.
Saint-Jean.
Singh. Welcome to St. John's.
J'ai une question spécifique.
I have a
à
specific
notre région.
question about a
Dans les
specific
provinces de
region.
l'Atlantique, quelles sont
In
les
the
chances,
Atlantic
selon vous,
provinces,
que le NPD ne gagne
what
dans
are
aucune
the chances
circonscription dans la
that the NDP will win no riding there? Zero. Zero, because we have incredible candidates who are running. You heard Mary Shortall. She's the president of the party, and she's someone who's been fighting for workers. As the former president of the Federation, the Workers' Federation here, so she knows how to fight for people. And right now, when you talk to people in St. John's East, they remember the difference in their reality when they were represented by an NDP member like Jack Harris and not having an NDP to represent them. So the NDP will be missed by people, and people need NDP members to fight for them. That's what she will be doing in St. John's East. And today we will be visiting Halifax as well, where we have another incredible candidate running. And that person is a former NDP member of the legislature. And we also have people here who will be running in Newfoundland and Labrador. So we have very strong people who are running. And people here remember the difference when they had NDP members working hard for them, fighting for them. And people still want that. Well, that's true, but the polls are not really in your favor, and they are showing that the NDP may not. The NDP will not win in an Atlantic riding. So what can you do in light of those poll results? What can you do to try and turn things around? Well, I can give you an example from Ontario. In Ontario, in that election, they said the NDP would lose all its seats. But in fact, we were able to see a lot of NDP candidates win their ridings. So what is the real question for people in this election? If we're talking about health care, who will defend the health care system against Mark Carney talking about cuts, the Conservatives talking about cuts? Only the NDP is talking about investing in our health care system. It's only the NDP that will defend the health care system. It's only the NDP who wants to guarantee everyone's access to a family doctor. So it's only the NDP that's really there for people.
Thank you. Next question, Abby Cole, CBC.
1 in 3 Newfoundlanders don't have a family doctor, and a lot of our province is rural and northern. How will you incentivize retention of doctors in these rural regions?
One of the approaches has been to incentivize workers from different or doctors who are trained from different regions to work in the north. We're taking a different approach. We're saying let's actually train workers that live in northern and remote and rural communities. Let's train people from those communities who have roots there, who have family there, who have connections there. They're more likely to want to practice in the communities and serve the patients that they have grown up with. And so we're taking a different approach. Let's train people from those communities to be doctors in those communities. So that's an important approach. And we also are incentivizing, in general, the increase of family doctors with the plan that I laid out. These are concrete steps, increasing the number of residents by more than 1,000, by getting rid of the bureaucracy that a lot of physicians have to deal with so they can free up time to see more patients. Having a license which is across the country, pan-Canadian, so there's more flexibility and people can move around. These are all solutions, and giving the 1% top-up for provinces that agree with this plan. These are ways to work together to solve this problem, and I'm confident we can do it if we make it a priority. And for New Democrats, it is a priority.
So earlier this week, Polyev was here, and he said his government would take over the DFO to, quote, put the fish harvesters back in charge of the fishery. There was a fishers protest when Carney was here. So what is your party's vision for the future of the fishery here in Newfoundland?
Well, I want to see fisheries that focus on small local fishermen and fishers. I don't believe that the emphasis should be on the massive commercial fleets. The emphasis should be on local fishermen. That's our approach. It's long been our approach. We're the party that's always supported small and medium-sized businesses. We want to support local communities, and that's the way forward. I think working with those who are most impacted and helping the community that actually will most benefit from it. In that focus, worker focus on the people, that's what New Democrats bring to the table. We've seen what Harper did. Harper was no friend to Newfoundland and Labrador. He was no friend to the fishermen in this community. He was no friend to the fisheries. And the Liberals have let you down. And so I think send a New Democrat to fight for you. Someone's going to be your voice. That's going to raise the concerns that you're up against. Oui, ma vision pour la pêcherie dans la région, c'est de
for the future of the fishery is to prioritize local communities and local harvesters, not large commercial fishers, but the local small harvesters. We saw the reality under the Conservatives with Harper as Prime Minister, and we know that the Liberals abandoned the workers too. So it's really the NDP that's your ally. So if you want someone to work for you, it's Mary Chortle. New Democrats will fight.
Merci. Next question, Janice McGregor, CBC.
Good morning. 2 years ago, we had a First Minister's meeting focused on healthcare. The federal government put a big pot of money on the table. We had a series of agreements roll out in jurisdictions across Canada that were supposed to be fixing primary care and mental health services. So same strategy as you're talking about here. Put a big pot of, an incentive, a big money incentive, commit to it, and require those receiving that money to make the investments in primary care. What's the difference between what you're proposing and what supposedly happened 2 years ago? And why do you think what you're proposing would work in a way that what played out 2 years ago clearly hasn't met the needs of everyone?
Yeah, there's a big difference. When we actually looked at that plan, when we looked at the conditions, I want folks to remember, there were actually no conditions. There were actually no requirements. The conditions were around data and other very minor issues. There was no requirement to end privatization. There was no requirement that any public dollar go towards public care, not private care. There was actually very little in terms of conditions. So it was blank checks without actually any guarantee. And then we've got provinces that are privatizing and no enforcement of the Canada Health Act. There's massive differences. The Liberals are all kind of show about this, but they didn't back it up by saying, let's enforce the Canada Health Act. Let's make sure you cannot be giving public money to private care, that you can't be cutting services. There was none of that. That was in the negotiations between provinces. There were very little conditions, and they could have negotiated conditions. They could have said, we're not going to give money unless it all goes towards care. We're not going to give money if it ends up in the pockets of a CEO or a for-profit healthcare facility. None of that was done. And we raised those concerns at that time. We said, this is not good enough. There's no conditions here. There's no requirement for this to actually go towards care. And that's a problem with the Liberal approach. And then furthermore, what we're laying out is a pathway towards hiring more physicians to directly address the problem. That was kind of a generalized, here's some money without any conditions. We're talking about the specific problem that we're up against, which we hear from everybody. We heard from Pierre and Marie-France, which is a lack of healthcare workers. We need more nurses, we need more healthcare workers, and we need more physicians, and we're giving a plan to address one piece of that.
While we're here in St. John's, I want to ask you a national unity question. I'd like to hear from your candidate on this too, for a regional perspective, if you don't mind, if I could hear from both of you. In the wake of these tariff threats, I appreciate that maybe the auto industry in Ontario is bleeding a little harder than maybe folks here are just now, but who knows where this is going. The Premier here has spoken about the energy industry here, perhaps being a crown jewel, kind of in what might be eventually a retaliation strategy for Canada. And I'd like to get the NDP's perspective on the importance of everyone pitching in, even if your province isn't maybe on the front lines, and what you would like to see kind of done in this moment in terms of people standing together regardless of their regional economic interests.
Thank you for the question. I'll tell you a couple of kind of anecdotes that kind of spell out how I feel about, or how I feel Newfoundland and Labradorians feel about this. We were at a pub last night. Mary Shore will give you the name of the pub. And we had...
Republic of Doyle.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one. It's a limelight in the Republic of Doyle. It's limelighted in that show. So we were at the pub, and when I walked in, a woman came up to me and pinned a maple leaf on my sweater. And just a show of, like, there is an incredible amount of national unity. Canadians across the country are saying, let's stand up and fight back. We were at a farmer's market today, and one of the folks I was speaking with pointed and said, there was a sign that said made in Newfoundland and Labrador. She's like, you know what, we got to buy more things made in Canada. We got to stop buying stuff from the United States, and we can do that. There is an incredible sense of national pride right now. And I feel there's a moment of strong national unity. Canadians do want to fight back. They do want to come together, and we do that. That's kind of how Canadians deal with tough times. Speak to folks in the prairie, speak to folks in the Atlantic region, speak to folks in all parts of our country, from coast to coast to coast. When you're in a storm, when you're in a tough time, Canadians band together. We get through tough times by looking out for each other. And that's why Canadians are starting to wonder, well, you know, cutting things that we need is not the way forward. The way we go forward is by lifting each other up, strengthening each other. And we're seeing that more and more. We're seeing that desire to stand up together. And I'm here for it. I think that's a beautiful thing to see. That resilience inspires me. The strength and the resistance I'm seeing in Canadians inspires me. And I want you to know you can count on New Democrats to continue that fight. Thanks. Mary will give you still a bit more regional flair. I mean, I should also say I did grow up in Newfoundland and Labrador, so I'm giving you. So I'm giving you some of my own
NDP Leader
flair as well.
Jagmeet Singh speaking in St. John's, Newfoundland this morning, talking about healthcare, specifically giving all Canadians access to a physician. And he says part of that plan would be to open up 1,000 new residency spaces. The CBC's Alexander Silverman has been listening into this as well, listening in from Ottawa. Alexander, we heard the CBC's Janice McGregor asking Singh a question there, asking him, how is this plan different from what we've already heard out there? Not a lot of specific numbers from the leader. What was your takeaway?
Well, Marianne, we heard another announcement from the NDP there focused on one of their core issues, healthcare, reminding Canadians that they were a party that pushed for pharmacare, dental care, fighting for an expansion of public health care. And we heard Singh there, as part of this announcement, talk about how he views health care, as many people do, as a Canadian value, alluding to the tensions with the U.S. at this point in time, and saying that it's critical to continue to push for the protection of public health care here in Canada. And recognizing that the system is currently in crisis. Many people in Newfoundland and Labrador, right across the country, don't have a primary care provider. So at that announcement there, Singh was pitching to his plan to try and address that issue, saying that he would create an incentive program, an additional 1% Canada Health transfer to provinces who deliver on guaranteed access to primary care. We did hear a question to Singh there from my colleague Janice McGregor asking, well, what's different here compared to what's happened in the past with previous incentive programs? And Singh says that he would have stricter conditions with an NDP policy on this to ensure all of that spending is fully tied to public care. He also spoke about streamlining the process for foreign internationally trained doctors to be able to work in Canada to try and fill some of those vacant positions, reducing bureaucracy as well, cutting down on paperwork and the time physicians are spending doing things other than providing care to patients. And he also spoke about the importance of training doctors and training healthcare workers from northern, rural, isolated communities to be able to work in the communities they're from.
And I know you're going to be following not only what Jagmeet Singh is doing in Atlantic Canada, but also the other leaders. We're going to check in with you throughout the morning. That's CBC's Alexander Silberman reporting in Ottawa. Taking a look at Parliament Hill this hour, we're standing by to bring you much more election coverage throughout the day here on CBC News Network. And that includes a campaign event at the top of the hour when Liberal leader Mark Carney is expected to speak. We're also expecting to hear from the Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet.